Hi and welcome to another episode of the award-winning Homeowners Q&A podcast. I'm your host, Miles, and today we're asking one of the most important questions in renewable heating space: what makes a truly great heat pump installer? Joining me are Barry Sharp from Renewable Heat, John from John Wood Heating and Renewables, and Richard Williams from Homestead Energy. Welcome, guys. Before we get started, we'd like to thank our sponsor, E.ON Next. E.ON Next has been helping UK homeowners make the switch to renewable energy and sustainable heating for years, offering advice, trusted installations, and ongoing support to help households. Whether you're exploring air source heat pumps, looking to optimize your home's efficiency, or just beginning your renewable journey, E.ON Next team are there to make the process simple, transparent, and tailored to your home. A big thank you once again to E.ON Next for supporting this podcast and for helping drive the UK's renewable heating revolution. Right, Barry, you've been in the world of heat pumps for forever. You've seen it all. You've seen the good guys, the bad guys. What, in your opinion, makes a truly great heat pump installer?
20 years, Mars. 20 years of heat pumps.
Yes, wow.
I think the true mark of a good installer is a Scottish accent. John, you agree?
100%, mate. That's what I was just about to say. Took the word out of my mouth.
There's two things here. Is that if someone contacts you for a heat pump, you're not trying to sell them a heat pump, because it's the old analogy of you don't go into a BMW forecourt unless you want a BMW. If you're talking to a heat pump installer, it's because you want a heat pump for your house. The key bit here is you're selling confidence. The customer's measuring you for confidence in what you're doing. So really, if you're talking to somebody about a heat pump systems, if they know what they're talking about and know their trade, then you're likely to get a good installation from them. A lot of my clients can see right through a lot of the, let's say, double glazing guys. They're out there trying to sell heat pumps that are just doing mass marketing and trying to chuck them in. All the clients see right through that. But if you're trained, heat geek, warmer, understand your trade, have a reputation, then you're going to be picked up as a good installer.
Would you agree with that, John? Do you think that communication is one of kind of the key points to being a good installer?
I have to agree with that. And also body language as well, and the way you come across in somebody's house. I mean, some of my customers have had bigger companies out, and it's all been about the sales talk, the sales pitch. And obviously that's not what they were after. They were just after somebody who's honest, down to earth, and knows what they're doing and can answer the questions quite clearly, even holding eye contact with them. So they know that they have confidence in you, because they are going to be spending a considerable amount of money. Some of them, depend on what type of installation they're having, and I think that's key. And that's been a big success with my business, not just for heat pumps but for boilers. Is just being honest. I don't really have a sales pitch. I'm just an honest guy and just explain things to them as clear as I can be.
What about you, Richard? Where do you sit on the whole communication thing? What for you actually makes a great heat pump installer?
There's many things. We assume as installers, and as Barry was saying, the different types of training we may have done, we assume that the technical side of things is as important to customers as it is to us. And that's not always the case. Some customers, all they want to know is their house going to be warm and how much is it going to cost them? That's enough. The rest of it is, are you respectful of their home, how you present yourself? In the UK especially, we've got used to the trades being a certain way and sounding like a certain type of person. And I've had it myself in my own home where a tradesman will bowl on in like he's doing you the favour, trump dirty shoes around your house, and like somehow they've got a right to be there. And I never approach a customer's house like that. I think the first thing you do is be thankful that they've chosen you to be there. They're spending their money on you. Shoes off. It's such a small thing, but I think that's the first impression you're giving. If you're walking builder's boots into someone's house and you don't take your shoes off, I see it so often. Take your shoes off. Even if they say no, don't bother. I mean, there's the occasional house where, you wipe your feet on the way out kind of house, but they're few and far between. Being respectful and well-spoken and understanding their concerns as well, and not just bombarding them with jargon. If you're going in with an understanding of what it's like, being unsure of what you're having done to your house, there's 1,000 experts, 1,000 opinions. And as Barry and John were saying, being confident and knowing your technical side, but not bombarding. There's a time and a place for that with clients, of course. They're the mechanical engineer clients and the super geeky ones who have done more research on DIY heating than probably anyone in history. And that's a really common thing nowadays, is that you get that geeky homeowner who've done the homeowner training courses and they understand the different DTs and systems. Yeah, there's a time and a place to get really techie with them, helping them understand the process and what each step is along the way, because it's not the same as having a boiler swap, is it? It's not, oh yeah, okay, no problem, we'll swap your boiler, we'll be here tomorrow and we'll get a new boiler in. It's a much more drawn out process that involves a lot more communication and helping them understand why certain things are the way they are, and that includes throughout the handover as well, and checking in with them at the end and making sure everything's good, and a little check-in call. There's lots to it to be a really good installer.
Every installation is bespoke as well, Mars. That's another thing. So if someone's listening to your requirements and your wants and needs, I won a job with a national company this week, and I was $3,500 more, but I was the one that listened to him and what he wanted to do, because he was switched on enough that I say, oh, you want to do this, right? This is how we'll do it. Are you happy with that? That national company's like, no, we're doing it this way. So he was on to sacrifice £3,500 just to get what he wanted. And I think you're spending that kind of money, you want your system to be bespoke as you wanted it.
My second heat pump installation was actually for the lead data scientist for Octopus. That guy obviously was quite clued up, and it's admitting if you don't know something as well, that you admit that and work with the person if they know something that you don't know. Because let's be honest, we might know it or forget it, or we might not know it, but it's just being honest and transparent with them. And me and that guy, we worked together on his house. When I sent the heat loss, he would send it back, ask, could you alter this? Could you look at that? That heat pump is performing really well actually on OEM. It's right up there. I think it's like 600% the last time I looked.
So Barry, Richard actually mentioned quite an interesting point there about the installer respecting your home. We had a pretty unfortunate incident about 6 weeks ago where we did actually have an installer here that preached the whole mantra of, it's your home, I'm going to respect it. But when they're actually in there and they start behaving otherwise, it becomes a very difficult situation. And we see this on our forums all the time where, homeowners, they don't know how to deal with the situation. They've invited an installer and they've hired him. They've obviously perceived a certain level of professionalism. Then they come inside the house and they start working. And then a lot of those things aren't actually enforced or, put into practice. What would you recommend to a homeowner that is put in that situation where they've invited an installer in, things start to go pear-shaped? How do they deal with that?
Oh, that's a stinker of a question, Mars. I mean, I've heard of customers kicking people out of their house, but that's such a difficult thing to do because they're halfway through something. And a lot of them don't know something's going bad until it's too late. Mars, I don't know how to answer that one.
My request on that is, if I were in a this applies to all areas of life for me. If I'm doing something that I don't know is offending someone, or I'm not respecting their home in a way they would expect, as long as it's reasonable, I would far rather they took me aside and said, Richard, I'd rather you did this. Would you mind? I would far rather know, assess it and think, okay, is it a reasonable request? Have I overlooked something? Can I learn from this? I'd far rather have feedback, because then how else do you know how to improve? If someone feels too afraid to say to you, I don't like what you're doing, or you walked muddy shoes through my lounge the other day, I'd far rather they said something to me or anyone else on our team and said, look, this kind of isn't what I was expecting. Because either I can take that feedback and go, no, I disagree with you, it's unreasonable, or I can say, do you know what, you're right, I'm really sorry I overlooked that. And I think everybody should have that mindset with a tradesperson in their house, because if we held other trades to a higher standard, it might raise all trades up to some level, because there are so many bad tradesmen out there and they'll talk a good talk.
Do we think that's happening a lot, though? Do you think this is happening quite a lot? Or what do you think, Mars, from the forums? Are you seeing it a lot?
We certainly see it to the point where, a certain level of respect, and I'm not saying, the installer didn't take his shoes off. It's more the matter of in which they behave in that person's property. So whether they're dragging cylinders across their marble floors, or, if they're, doing a lot of damage like that. I think that the biggest issue that a lot of people kind of run into, especially on the forums, is they have invited an installer in which they thought that they trusted. The work starts, the pipe work starts to get removed, half of it's lying on the driveway, and then they realize, shit, we've made a mistake here, this is the wrong guy. And then they don't know what to do, because now everything's lying on the driveway. It's going to take weeks, if not months, to find somebody to come and put that back into place. That's the drama, that's the issue, that's the difficult decision that they've got to make.
So this comes down to people doing checks before they start, then, but
most people are recommended by people, aren't they?
Our whole industry is, John. Yeah, it's all recommendation.
If somebody's using somebody, surely they would have come from somebody's recommendation. Hopefully, is that what you're coming from, Miles? Or are you just talking about getting a random person in, or
we recommend certain installers to our kind of followers that are looking for people in their area. But at the same time, a lot of people have gone out, they've done their homework, they've invited, they've done the 3-4 quotes, interviewed the actual installers that have come through, and a lot of problems often occur from maybe it's a sales guy or a service guy or an office guy, like let's say a Barry that's not actually on the tools anymore. He comes through, he's very charming, he says all the right things. Then the installers come through, and the work doesn't quite marry up to that, and that's where the issues start.
I've always found, for me, because I'm like quite honest, I always like say things beforehand to somebody. So I always say, do you want me to put dust sheets down? Which I would do anyway, but I'm just using that as an example. Oh, I know you're right, that floor's coming up, or that carpet's getting ripped out. If I've damaged something, I will always admit it to somebody. I'll say something like, when we moved, that's happened. And I feel like that's where you start to build that trust and that relationship where they know you're not taking the mick if you're going to be honest with them and say, oh, look, I've done this by accident, or this is that, or I'm sorry, he came through, his shoes on, it's all muddy, we'll sort that out. But if you're not going to admit to stuff or own up to it, and let's be honest, the homeowner's not silly. I mean, I've had 2 extensions built in my house, and I've seen stuff that looks like where they've damaged something, but nobody said anything. And I've had to say, look, who done that? And nobody owns up. Where for me, I'm always that person who would just own up and say, look, I'm really sorry, damaged that, or that's, and just try and get that trust there. But what you're talking about there is a really difficult one, because obviously you get to the point now where you don't want them in your home, and I've never been in that situation, so I don't really know how to answer that.
There's a common thread that's beginning to evolve here. One, the installer needs to be a good communicator, and I think there has to be a level of trust with that homeowner, with that installer. So my advice to homeowners, and I wonder what you guys would be able to contribute to this, is that if you have a bad gut feel about that installer, even though they might be quite nice, but if you've got something's just not quite sitting right, my recommendation is just like, put them to one side and keep the hunt going for somebody else. Do you think that's a good call?
People by people. You are interviewing for a job on every time you walk into someone's home. And it goes both ways. It's not just that the homeowner's interviewing you. There's some homeowners that you get a bad feel for straight away, and you think, I don't want to work with you. And it's a two-way interview. And it doesn't happen very often. Often, I'd imagine, in either scenario, in either direction. But there has to be a mutual respect, and the homeowner and the installer or the company, whoever the representatives they're meeting, there has to be a two-way respect, and you have to like each other, because you're going to be working together and in that person's most private, personal space. So you absolutely have to interview each other and definitely trust your gut.
It's actually more than that, because heat pumps are so bespoke, you're going to be there for the lifetime of that heat pump, because we're looking after probably 95% of the heat pumps that we fitted. So that's going back to the warranty calls, the servicing and all that, because we know the system better than anyone else. We designed it. So really, it's a lifetime relationship you're building here on that first date.
But equally, I'm laughing a bit about it, because I'm doing the opposite at the moment and taking over loads of bloody heat pumps that don't work, which is annoying me. So I'm in the opposite at the moment, where there's some new builds here where they're being flung in, and I've actually taken on quite a lot of other people's installs, which I don't really want to do, but I feel like I'm not forced, but put into that. And yeah, that's quite difficult, because I'm taking over other people's installs and they know them better than me, and I'm having to figure them all out and sort them out. I didn't really think I was going to go down that route, but then I'm coming up against homeowners who are like anti-heat pump now, who want to rip it out and put a boiler back in, and is trying to convince them basically to keep what they've got, let's do this and do that, which is a difficult situation to be in, especially in those homes where they're absolutely at the end of the tether with it. But it's not the heat pump's fault, it's insulation.
There's a measure right there, Mars. If someone can fix a bad heat pump, they are a good installer, because it's a totally different game to find a fault in something you don't know who's been fitted.
This isn't just another book about heat pumps. The Ultimate Guide to Heat Pumps brings together the collective voice of over 35 contributors, engineers, designers, troubleshooters, and homeowners, with more than 7,500 installations and 585 years of combined experience. It's no-nonsense, practical advice to help you get it done first time. Available now, link in the description. Barry, what you were saying there earlier is that a lot of these systems are bespoke, and you guys are going in and actually doing those bespoke installations for those particular properties. Where do you sit on the zero disrupt thing when it comes to this, in terms of the quality and potentially the issues that we're going to have down the line in terms of the great installer.
Sometimes I think you don't like me, Martin, because you give me real stinking questions, really, honestly. When I was doing zero disrupt because nobody wanted to pay for the money 10 years ago, the heat pumps were nowhere near as forgiving, and we didn't know what we were doing. For the first time, we're actually, with the Heat Geek guys, are actually starting to learn what works. So for years, I've known what to tweak and what to do in a heat loss and what I can get away with because I've got enough installs out there. But it's in here. But now Heat Geek have quantified it and measured it and said, actual fact, without saying Barry's right, that the older guys know what they're doing. And they're quantified. And this is going to give confidence to everyone, I think. It feels like we're going to come back a little bit and it's going to become a lot easier and a lot quicker to put heat pumps in. I love this idea is you can put it in. Modern heat pumps will still work like a gas boiler if you have to. So you're not going to be stuck. 10 years ago, you were getting 48, 50 degrees max out of heat pumps. If you got that design wrong, that was it. The house was cold and it was screaming. At least now, the worst case is, I'm not saying that Heat Geek are getting it wrong, but if we got it wrong, for example, it would be up a few curves, we'll catch it, we'll find out what's wrong, we'll fix it, and that means you're going to get there in the end. And I've been saying this for years, that I think the solution here is eating the elephant in one sentence. In fact, there's a chapter in the book about the fact that we shouldn't be trying to do zero carbon in houses all of it at the same time. Get the heat pump in and start chipping away at the efficiency if we can, which might mean leave the cylinder in until it starts to fail, or worry about that radiator in a couple of years' time, accept that room might be a bit colder or it might run a bit hotter, but we're going to get it to it. Stop trying to do the whole thing in one go. That unlocks people, because if people put a gas boiler in, that's it. That seems locked out for 15 years.
Because, John, I mean, you still, irrespective of zero disrupt, I assume that if you'd gone to go into a property and given a quote, you wouldn't have told every single home that, every single rad needs to get pulled up and they need new cylinders. Obviously, it's bespoke, like Barry says. So that's still that communication aspect again, isn't it? From an installer's perspective, you're communicating with the homeowner saying, I think from my personal, professional perspective, this is what you need.
I don't know how much I can speak about it because I signed a non-disclosure, but I've been part of Zero Disrupt since day one. I have actually. So I've been part of all the experiments since day one. I've been part of it from the beginning right up until now. And the systems that we've got on there from the beginning are running really well, like 400%. I've watched Zero Disrupt progress from the beginning when there was just a few of us doing some installs for Heat Geek and watching what happens when you're putting them into certain types of houses. To how it's got to now. So I've been part of it from the start. There's a lot of heat pumps out there that would never have been heat pumps. It would have been a gas boiler, and it's also giving the homeowner to then later on upgrade or do whatever they want to do to get that performance up on there. It is quite concerning for a lot of heat pump engineers or MCS like myself, maybe because they're worried by it. Those conversations with customers who were never ever thinking about a heat pump is really interesting, because most people will come for your MCS or for your company, already done the research, know what a heat pump is, know what they want, and all of a sudden you've got this customer who was just probably wanting to put a boiler in, and all of a sudden they've got a heat pump. You ask them, do they want a heat pump, basically, and then trying to go through everything with them, and which is a really interesting conversation, and also trying to convince them because they never even thought about it. So those conversations are really interesting, and also they've got to have a lot of trust in you as well, because most of them have just heard bad things about heat pumps.
The Zero Disrupt ties into what we've been saying for the last couple of years, that it looks like from Open Energy Monitor that most systems are 30% oversized. So if you factor that back in, which Heat Geek are doing now, because they now know the real data, is that's why these systems are now needing less work, because we've just been over-egging them too much. So this is a bit of reassurance to everyone that we've now got the data and we've now got the evidence to say that we have been probably oversizing stuff too much, and now we could get away with less, get away with more, sorry. Get away with less.
Looks like we've lost Richard again. I'm not sure he's going to be able to get back in. But anyway, let's get back to what you were saying earlier, Barry. So we were talking about vetting and, making sure that the homeowner actually does their homework correctly. And this is something that I have probably spent way too much time of my life over the course of the last year trying to figure out. I can't actually understand how anybody is supposed to vet. So obviously there's people like yourself and John and, a lot of the top installers that actually come on this podcast. They're the easy guys. If you're lucky enough to have them in your catchment area, that's a slam dunk. Even if you've got to wait 6 months for them to come and actually do the work, sorted. Now, when it comes to vetting somebody else, even if you've got word of mouth, people don't post, or installers don't post on Instagram their shit jobs. They don't post the stuff they're not proud of. They're not going to put you in touch with a customer that hates them, right? So how do you go about actually vetting your installer to make sure that you can find somebody that is actually quite competent?
If a bad installer wouldn't allow reviews, that would be one. So in Scotland, if you use the grant or loan in Scotland, you have to put a review on the energy saving website. So I've got like 500 reviews, all sitting at 4.8 or something good like that. But there is some bad ones in there, people that weren't entirely happy. But you can see that as you go through unhappy, they say at the end of it, yeah, but they did fix it in the end, yada yada. So I think anyone who's quite happily publicly doing Trustpilot, Energy Saving Trust, or some sort of review will at least give you a bit of a benchmark of what, because they can't control them. They can't control those reviews.
I've got about 300 5-star Google reviews. It's taken me that long to get that. However, there's some businesses who have got that in 6 months, which makes me question these reviews. So for me, I've now, and trust me, I put a review out to every job I do. Some of them don't answer fine. But we went to Which Trusted Trader, not for work, but just to be vetted. We were Which Trusted Traders, and it was nothing to do with getting work from there. Like, it was just so that somebody could come out from an external body, look at us, and say, like, let's check some work, check some reviews.
I would hope when the new MCS system comes in, that will be a better vetting system. You're quite sceptical of this, Mars, I know. I've got this is it's a blunt object just now, and I just hope they can pull it together, because the tension is good for it, that they're going to bring the complaint process into one place, and that way they can vet people quicker and they can raise problem installers quicker. And it's been a long time, and it's not down to them, it's down to other things that have been stalling it.
I think Rich Barrows actually told me on a podcast, but he mentioned that he wouldn't trust an installer that doesn't have a social media account, where he's not posting like a job every single week. And I think that's a fair shot, but maybe that's kind of prejudiced the kind of elder installers that might not necessarily want to go onto the social media front. But I thought that was a fair shout.
So that's some way of people to give them negative feedback that everyone can see. So you kind of want to see the negative stuff, don't you? You want to see somebody post something bad and how it's dealt with afterwards, because that's a measure. Because things do go wrong, as long as the installer puts it right. It's only a problem if you don't deal with it or don't put it right.
The problem that you have with social media now, and I don't think it's been brought up, is we now have this amazing thing called AI. You can just put a picture you're on there and say, alter this, make that look like that, and put it on social media. Now your installs is back. Straighten that pipe up now, man. Do you know what I mean? Insulate it while you're there. Get some insulation on there, and actually put me in the background as well with Mars and Barry or whatever, and having a cup of tea like that. It's easy to do, simple to do. And so if you've got a social media account and your work could be spot on, but who knows these days? Do you know what I mean? Like, it's not even been brought up. We're right at the beginning of this. It's something that people would need to watch out for.
John tapped on it earlier on. Our industry has always been about recommendations. We're on second, third, fourth tiers of people with recommendations, because you will ask. Because it used to be years ago, you find who your local plumber was and you trust them, because you'd ask the people you trusted. Heat pump industry is not quite there yet, because there's not enough volume. I see it in Scotland, where I'm now got clusters in towns that I've done 4 or 5 in the town now. So that's getting that second, third tier that they've seen me in the vans going back and forward, and you've got a reputation. So that's one way. If you see the van, like my van keeps going back, maybe that's not a good thing.
I'd say something with Barry as well. He befriended me with bottles of red wine. So it wouldn't have surprised me if you were in there with bottles of red wine and getting, it's a private joke. Me and Barry got drunk on bottles of red wine one night, and I mean bottles of it. It was brilliant.
Not all heat pump installers are created equal, and you don't want to learn that the hard way. That's why we've put together a network of professionals who actually know what they're doing. Head to the link in the description and find someone you can trust with your system. You know what the problem that I find with referrals is the consistency. So if there's an up-and-coming installer, maybe they've only been around for like 6 months, they've done a couple of really good jobs, but that consistency and that knowledge still isn't necessarily there. So they might have nailed the last 2 houses, and they're just going to try and apply the same principles to the next house, which is completely different, and they bodge it. And then that's when the problems start. And then I suppose it then comes down to the personality of that installer and the willingness for them to actually want to educate themselves and keep coming back to actually try and rectify it. I think that's quite a key point.
Yeah, I've spent many a Friday night crying in front of a heat pump, unable to fix it.
It's good when you crack it and then you get them on Facebook. I also had one who went to Heat Geek and said, look, I've got this issue. It's got this constant noise coming from the heat pump. Heat Geek asked me to go and look at it. I recommended to the installer what he should do to rectify it, because he couldn't fix it. And then she sent a review in saying basically, John came, did this, told us what to do, and it stopped all the noise in my house now, and my heat pump's working a lot better. So those other things are working, but it's got to be bigger, hasn't it? There's got to be more out there for people to contact people, because I'm just one guy.
The zero disrupt thing might just do it, because it's not just HeatGeek. There's a few of them doing it. What Turbo installs Octopus, Adea as well. I've got 2 of them going in this winter, where it's going to self-balance the system and it'll report back. But the idea with Adea is we put the box in, you put smart TRVs everywhere which measure the flow rate of the radiator, so it then knows how much energy is going into the room, and it measures the room temperature and then balances the whole house. But what it'll do is after 2 months report on what needs to happen next. Like, as it'll say, the living room's at least 500 watts short, or this room's way too much, I can take the curve down. And that's when you can start developing. But everyone's doing this now, a way of cutting the cost, and that's where we get mass adoption.
The other thing as well is gas boilers are going right up for the roof. But does that mean that heat pumps need to be so expensive for people? Because are they only expensive because the grants are in? Do you know what I mean? Because bring them down, we'll get more work.
Well, the heat pump prices in Europe aren't much different. The idea is that the more you manufacture, the cheaper the unit cost becomes. But we're basing that on an industry that already makes 1 million heat pumps a year. Why do you think our piddly 50,000 heat pumps are going to make any difference? We've seen like some heat pumps come down in price. And the grants is quite reasonably priced compared to some of them, but that's not the expensive bit. It's me swearing about selling them as the expensive bit.
Some heat pump manufacturers sell heat pumps in mass cheap to people, which again encourages poor installers because they're just being thrown in there. It's cheap. So if they can do that for building sites, etc., why can't do it? Just bring them down for everybody. But I don't know. Maybe that's above my pay scale.
Maybe Mars has got a point there. That is a concern. If you go to too much zero disrupt, maybe you stop you've got HeatGeek and everyone else doing checks and balances before they do zero disrupt. Mars's point would be is if everyone just does it and doesn't check, because I've seen Barry and John Lerone just chucking them into 10mm pipe. It's okay for me to do it without knowing why. That would be the issue.
Because you've got the guarantees of HeatGeek, but this is what I said on a podcast, I think last week or the week before, where I said you're going to get copycats that are going to say, well, you got this HeatGeek guy, they're doing zero disrupt. I'm a zero disrupt guy, but they're charging you 10, I'll do it for 7.5, and bish bosh bang done. But you don't get the guarantee, you don't get any assurances that is going to get put in properly.
Full circle, got to check your installer.
Right, Barry, wrap this episode up for us. So what is the one piece of advice that you'd give any homeowner that's looking to choose the right installer for their property?
Check multiple sources, not just one. So if they've got more than one place, you can check out who they are. See if you can find out from other people indirectly how good they are, not directly. This is what you say. If you try to go directly and ask them, how good are you? They're going to say, look at this photo. Try and circumnavigate that and find people who've done the install that are not recommended.
Same question to you, John.
Well, first of all, you've got to be Scottish, good looking. No, I'm joking. Obviously, no, I think it's Barry, but Barry touched on it. Full circle. I mean, I would always recommend people go to other people's jobs. I've done that in the past where I've said to people who are interested in the heat pump, this is Pauling's number. Give her a call. They've actually gone around, visited her, and got a bit of feedback off her before spending quite a lot of money. And some of them I've actually visited 2 of my customers before investing in me. And most of my customers are happy to speak to people. But then I could just be choosing the customers I've done a really good job for, couldn't I? And hiding the bad ones, but which there isn't. But again, that's what I would probably do if I did that for my own extension, which was the builder that I chose. I visited some of his jobs and I went to some of his previous customers just to make sure, because I was spending a lot of money on 2 extensions and I wanted to make sure I was getting it right. And that's what I did, and that's what I did advise other people to do.
If you've got any questions about heat pumps, then you need to join the Renewable Heating Hub forums. You can connect with other homeowners, share experiences, and get advice on heat pumps and renewables. Sign up today and be a part of the conversation. Link in the description. A huge thank you to Barry, John, and Richard for sharing their perspectives on what makes a great installer, and a big thank you to Eon Next for supporting this episode and for helping homeowners across the UK make the switch to renewables with confidence. Don't forget to subscribe if you've had a great or not so great experience with your installer, and join the conversation over at Renewable Heating Hub forums. Until next time, stay warm, stay green, stay tuned. Goodbye.